And I will now call upon Roy Pereira to come and give his presentation. Roy is the winner of High Quest 2011. That's his best qualification, but he's done better in his life as well. He's the CEO and founder of Shiny Apps. It's an advertising technology company based in Toronto that is modernizing selling of premium ads. This is his fifth startup, but he has previously held executive positions with Cisco Systems, BioScript, and Certicom, both in Canada and Silicon Valley. Please help me welcome Roy.
So yeah, I went through TiEQuest in 2011 2010, when Shiny Ad was just starting up. It was an unbelievable experience. It allowed me, because it was just me, it wasn't anyone else, to really hone in the business plan. It forced me to build one, which I didn't really want to do in the first place. I didn't use it afterwards, but it at least forced me to really think about what the hell I was doing. And it was a great experience, great mentors, and it allowed us to go from 0 to 1. That was the first step in a long series of steps. And back to the certification, when you're a startup, nobody knows who you are. So getting that win opened doors for us tremendously, and it allowed us to get funded. So the top three companies of that year were invited to present to a few angel investor groups here in Toronto, and that's actually when we got our first round of financing. Just because winning TiEQuest opened that door. It obviously did a lot more in terms of making sure that our market and business plan was working as well. So today I'm going to finish off by talking about marketing and online advertising. My background is marketing. I've been a marketing executive for quite many years. I'm also really, really technical. I was a coder, I was a math geek in school, so that's my first love. But I also run a company that's all about online advertising, so I know a lot about that as well. I'm not selling a service to you or anything like that, so this presentation is the first and probably the only time I'm actually going to give this presentation. So if it looks raw, it's raw. It was done today and yesterday. So let's talk a little bit. Well, there's me. I've done a lot of stuff. I've worked in Silicon Valley. I've worked in small companies and big companies. Great experience going back and forth. And there's my daughter as well. I've been around since 1992 when the internet was new, when Mozilla came out. I thought that was so cool. But it wasn't, I thought it wasn't as good as my bulletin board system, if you guys remember those. Bulletin board systems? BBS? Modems? Yeah, I thought, the internet sucks compared to this. Yeah, I was wrong. But the company that I run here is called Shiny Ads. What that was it was programmatic, guaranteed, which means really we're trying to automate buying of ads, premium ads, online ads. So when you call up a publisher and you want to buy an ad on the Globe and Mail, for example, the top ad, they're going to tell you they need $25,000 minimum. You're going to go away to Google, probably. And so we're trying to change that. Someone actually, the previous speaker talked about automating and that there's no purchase orders anymore. There are a ton of purchase orders in my industry. There's a ton of very rich salespeople who all they do is take phone calls and then fax paper around. So we're trying to automate that. We're based here. We raised a little bit of money, and we're also based in New York, which is pretty cool. So let's start by looking at what marketing is to really get a good understanding of it. Merriam-Webster has this definition: the act or process of selling or purchasing in a market, the aggregate of functions involved in moving goods from producer to consumer. I really hated that definition. So I looked for another definition. Google's cool. now it tells me words that I don't know. Marketing, the action or business of promoting and selling products or services. I like that one a lot better. I think my definition of marketing is really simple. Let's find some customers so that sales can close them, right? Where are my customers? Let's bring them over to sales. And I find that's a lot easier to understand. Marketing is not sales. Sometimes I hear a lot of people get confused. Well, I want my marketing team to be inside of my sales team. No, that's horrible. Two different things. Marketing also isn't just advertising, although I am going to be talking a lot about advertising in the future. There's just a ton of other stuff on marketing, but I want to make sure that you guys know that it's more. There's a lot of stuff, public relations, in terms of how do you get your message out to the influencers, and those influencers could be journalists, they could be market research analysts, depending on your industry. Advertising, of course, finding new customers to come in. Outreach activities like newsletters and webinars. Online webinars are incredibly powerful and incredibly cheap to perform. Collateral, of course, and events. Those are all components of marketing. It's just not advertising. And one thing that I really wanted to show, this is one of my favorite, this is not my slide. I wish it was. This is from Dave McClure. You gotta Google him. He's crazy on a video. He will swear and do all sorts of great stuff, but he's brilliant. He came up with this, and I think this is really relevant for marketing because most of what he talks about is actually really about marketing. Startup metrics for pirates are, all right, and each one of those letters means something. And I know it says about startups, but I think it's really great for everyone. Because when you look at his definition of what R stands for, acquisition, activation, retention, referral, revenue, most of those are about marketing. One of them is about sales, the last one. But it's really all about marketing. How do I acquire a user? How do I go find them? How do I keep them happy? And how do I have them bring me more customers? And this is his crazy map. And again, this is from his PowerPoint. The URL's there. If you haven't seen this, definitely take a look at it and really Google and try and find Dave McClure doing this presentation. You will laugh. So again, marketing's all over. It's really, really important. And especially in this day and age where everything's online, the marketing component is super, super important. So when I sit down with my marketing team, which is myself and two other people, really small, we're a small startup, right? I'm no longer working in a big publicly traded company. These are the things that we start off with. We don't start off with where are we going to advertise. We start off with what's our goal. And our goal can change. And really every quarter we kind of take a look at what are we trying to achieve. You know, are we trying to achieve the same thing as last time? That we want to be seen as experts in our industry? Or maybe this quarter we want to get more customers. So it kind of changes, and that single decision changes every other strategy and then tactic. Target customers, I think we saw it before. You really got to understand who your target customers are. If you don't understand that, then all of this is for naught because you're going to speak differently and they're not going to understand you. And so that in itself is a huge undertaking. Who are they? Where are they? Where do they hang out? Because they're hanging out online, right? So if you know where they are, it's going to be a lot easier for you. And what do they want, personally? And I always like to say this because I'm a B2B marketing guy, so I'm always selling to businesses. I have no idea how to sell to consumers. I don't know how to sell you a cell phone. I just don't. So if you're asking me questions about that, I don't know. But I know how to sell to businesses. But to selling to a business, you're really selling to a human, still somewhat, right? And they have desires and fears, exactly like what Adrian talked about, which I thought was really interesting, that tree. And you really have to sell to them and really understand what they want before you put together your whole marketing strategy. Because messaging has a ton to do with how successful you are. You can go out there with a great message, but you're going to scare the hell out of your audience, and they're never going to come to you and buy. So you got to understand what they want themselves. And then, of course, message based on the goals and the customer. So the message can't come first. We are the best. We have the best technology. So what? Right? What's your goal? Who are your customers, and why would that make sense? And all of that, then you can start looking at a strategy. And then you can start looking at tactics. A lot of times, I find that the tactics come first. That's kind of like building the technology and then finding the customers that may want to use it. It's backwards. And just parts of the corporate messaging that we look at. What's our tagline? What's our byline, which is a little bit larger than the tagline? The tagline is 3 words. What do? We automate premium advertising, right? Even smaller than a business card, right? Byline's a little larger. What's the elevator pitch? If I'm stuck in an elevator with a potential customer, which I have been many, many times, how fast can I tell them what we do and get them to smile and give me his business card or her business card, right? So it has to be very clear. So all of those kind of stem from the message and the goals and who you're trying to get to. And they just all kind of roll downhill. And then you get to the benefits. There's no features in here. Nobody cares about your features, right? And if you have too many features, that's bad. So it's all about the benefits. How are you making their lives better? Here's an example of an elevator pitch worksheet that we've worked with before. Who are you? What problems do you solve? Where is your target market? And so forth. And then creating content, again, based off of the main message. You're always looking back to that pivotal message, that core message that you've created based off of your goals, and then you're creating all of these subtasks. And then how are we going to do these? Let's put them down on a calendar. You can't do everything at the same time. What are we going to do with Twitter? We can do Twitter every day. It's so simple, right? But you can't do a blog post every day. And then a newsletter, that takes longer and so forth. So those are all components of the tactics. So here's something that, we built this little funnel for lead generation, and we talked about how do we get, a close, a customer going in through the door and sending us a contact form and so forth. How many newsletters do we have to send out? How many advertisements do we have to get, and so forth. And this is kind of interesting because if you want to hit your target revenue, you can work backwards, right? So if I need to hit $1 million, and $1 million is 10 customers, and I know that my ratios are 100 to 1 or more like 10,000 to 1, then I need about 10 million page views, for instance, if I want to hit those customers. And so we had one of our goals to present Shiny Ads as a thought leader in our industry. And so what we did there was we went out for articles. We thought, let's hit the influencers. The influencers are a lot of the journalists in our industry. Let's get them to write about us. How about we write about us ourselves and then push those stories onto the journalists as well. So we did all of these, blog posts, customer quotes, Twitter, blah, 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 as part of that quarter. That was our target, that was our goal. And one thing that we also heard before was that I truly believe that marketing has changed. I was a marketing VP in the early 2000s, and we spent a lot of money on trade shows. Lots of beer, lots of booths, lots of everything, right? It's great. I wouldn't do that now. I just wouldn't spend the money, and I don't think that it's effective at all compared to what you can do now. And really, nobody cares what you do in the booth other than your competition and the other industry vendors. They're like, wow, nice booth. Yeah, that's great. Now you're going to spending money with me, right? You're just going to get a pat on the back. Your customers are online, right? So, and one thing that we saw before, the customers are self-selecting you. Right? It's totally different. They're in power. They have all the information. They have more information than you probably. They know what your competitors are doing before you do. And so it's a very different world than 10 years ago. And you really have to be very open. And you have to be everywhere. And you have to allow them to find the information that they're looking for when they want and where they want it. But it's also a great time because it's very, very inexpensive to do marketing online. There's so many different places to do it. And I'll show you a couple of the stuff that we do. So that was my marketing thing. I'm going to go into advertising because I was going to do advertising and marketing together. Advertising, like I said, is just one tactic for marketing. But it's a very effective one. And we use it for lead engagement. Obviously, we find a lot of leads. We get people coming in back to our website and then convert them. So with that, let's start that segment. The first thing to understand about advertising is that it's very, very confusing. There are a ton of acronyms. It's like a little closed off club, and nobody wants you to come in. And so they speak different language in there, just to bar anyone from coming in. So, you know, terms like CPM, CPC, CPD, so quite a lot of terms. You know, so the first one that you really need to know is cost, CPM. It actually stands for cost per mule. Mule is Latin. I have no idea why it's not CPI, cost per impression, but it is cost per 1,000 impression. That's the one term that you should really know. It's a very odd term, like I said, but next one, CPC, cost per click, pretty popular. Google runs with that, Facebook runs with that as well. There are others, cost per day, very rare, but it's great. You get to you get to know exactly when it's going to run without having to worry about how much money you're going to spend. But there's others, cost per acquisition. This one's kind of interesting. You know, you will pay if someone buys your stuff. Wow, that's a great deal for an advertiser. The only time that really happens is at the lower tranches of the advertising world, the deep, seedy world of performance marketing. Don't really want to go there. Or you may, it depends on your industry. I don't go there, but. And then the other one is CTR, click-through rate. It's basically a metric. How well is your ad doing? How many clicks versus impressions? The one thing to remember, though, is a click doesn't really mean that much. It just means that someone clicked on it. Maybe they did it a mistake because they thought it was part of the website. If they bounce right back, then you know they weren't interested. The final metric, obviously, is purchases. And then more recently, there are a lot of other acronyms. Again, this industry loves these acronyms. RTB, SSP, DSP, all of those are about the new way of buying online advertising in a more automated fashion. The one thing to remember about this, though, is that it's still remnant. It's still the very cheap seats of the advertising world. So the 25 cents per 1,000 impressions, right? Those are great because you can get your message out very cheaply, but you're in the world of very cheap ads, very cheap looking ads, and so forth. So they're not the premium stuff. Premium stuff doesn't go through this kind of technology. And of course, DFP, Google DFP is the ad server that is quite popular. If you're running a website and you're starting off, that's probably what you're going to be using. But even some of the largest websites on the planet use Google DFP as well to serve ads. So when I look at how do I want to advertise our company, there's a bunch of different ways. Search, which is really kind of intent. I'm searching for something, so I'm intending to buy it or I'm interested in it. There's social, which is great as well. Premium, and then remnant display. And the display market really are the banners that you see. The leaderboard banners up on top, the vertical banners called skyscrapers. Those are display, we call them. They could be an image, it could be an animated image, it could be a flash, it could be all sorts of stuff. There's really two types. One is premium, one is remnant. It really depends on the priority of your ad. And so when you call up the salesperson at Globe and Mail, and they'll tell you 25,000 minimum, you're buying a premium spot. You're going to get guaranteed to be displayed there. You're going to get top of the line treatment. It just costs you a hell of a lot more. It'll cost you, I don't know how much it does because they're not one of our customers, but it'll cost you like $20 per 1,000 impressions. Right? You go to Google AdWords or you go to another remnant ad network and you buy a bunch of remnant and it will cost you 25 cents, maybe 50 cents CPM. Huge difference. But for that, you're not getting any guarantees. Your ad may be displayed at the bottom of the page where nobody's actually looking because they haven't scrolled down. It could be shown, all sorts of other places that you really don't want your brand shown, right, and associated with. So, priority. So, real quick, so everybody's used Google AdWords? Yes? Anybody use Google AdWords? I bet I asked that question. Okay. So you guys all know where the ads are placed. This is a huge business for Google. Really, a lot of revenue, $30-some billion or so. Very easy to use. The problem here is that you're bidding on keywords. You can target for geography and so forth, but you're bidding on keywords at the end, and they choose how much those keywords are worth depending on demand. And if you're in an industry that's pretty busy, all of a sudden your keyword goes up astronomically. So that's not a great thing, especially if you have a limited marketing budget. So if you can define, well, this was beginner yoga classes, that's great, but you can also do beginner yoga classes Toronto, so you get a better rate than the overall one. So there's we generally don't use this just because it's more of a B2C advertising platform where you're looking for more consumers. One of the new places to advertise that I actually really like is LinkedIn. Everyone on LinkedIn? Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn is unbelievable. It's fantastic for the more professional crowd. And when we target B2B, we're targeting a specific person at a company. We're targeting an ad ops person. We're targeting a VP of sales. That's a title, and that's a professional person in there. They are obviously on LinkedIn. So we go into LinkedIn and we target, I don't know if I have a picture here, I do. So we go in and we actually target a title, right? And maybe we'll target a group, because if they belong to a group, then they're interested in that topic. That's an assumption. But if they have that title, they're obviously interested in our product, right? So it's a great targeting tool. It's much, much better than keywords in a lot of ways. It could get more expensive, but a lot of times those clicks are, you get less clicks, but you get more conversions, right? So to the previous example, we could be offering beer and sex. Is that what you said? Beer and pizza, sorry. So beer and pizza, and everybody would click on it, but we wouldn't get any customers. In this case, the people that we're targeting are going to click on it. The click is going to cost us anywhere from $1 to $4 per click. But the chances of that person converting to a real customer are astronomical compared to advertising on AdWords or another medium. And the level of granularity is just phenomenal. And this is really kind of new since 2-3 years ago. We've seen a huge amount of audience targeting data being put into these platforms like LinkedIn, like Facebook. There's Facebook. So Facebook really kind of started the ball rolling, and now they're a juggernaut in the advertising world. And they got it rolling because of the data that you and I give it. We're enabling them to make billions of dollars and eventually take over the world because we're telling them everything about us. And so they can turn that around and offer great targeting as well. And in this case, if I wanted to target peanut butter cookie lovers in Canada, there's only 400 of them. Oh, but they're between the ages of 27 and 29, and they're male. There's only 400 of them in Canada. But if I had a perfect product for them, all of those 400 guys would see my ad, and they would all want to click on it. So there's 400 customers. Right? So it's really about the conversion rate, not really the target that you're trying to get to. Yeah.
So how effective is Facebook in conversions? I mean, there's that story like last year about GM, right? GM said, you know what, we're done with Facebook.
Yeah, but they did that because they didn't get a preferred rate.
But I was curious, like how.
So I was telling Alex from the last speaker So my previous, I don't know if you saw that, my previous startup was the first Facebook marketing company in the world, and that was in 2007. So I have a bunch of experience with Facebook, and there's pros and cons. I don't feel that Facebook is a platform that that professionals or businesses looking to find or communicate to professionals should go into. Because when you're on Facebook, you absolutely don't want to think about work. You're going there to escape work. You're at work probably, and you're like, I hate work and I want to escape work. So why do I want to click on an ad that's talking to me about my work? I don't. I want to click on an ad with beer and pizza on it, right? I really want to escape. And what we found during those 3 years is that when we did a B2B campaign, it would fail miserably. Even B2C, if the brand is not seen as cool or entertaining, it'll fail. So brands like Adidas, they have millions and millions of fans because it's like, it's cool. Yeah, I want to look at new sneakers. That's what you want to do at Facebook. You don't want to think about, hey, I need a new firewall for my company. No. That is a great example of LinkedIn. So there's a lot of reasons why brands advertise. It's not just for the clicks, right? A lot of major national brands will spend millions of dollars and don't even look at clicks.
So it's all about branding.
It's all about the resonance of the brand. It's all about being top of mind, right? Car companies know that you're on hotrod.com or something. You're not going to click on their ad and then go and buy a car. They want you to see their car. They want you to see the new Mustang, and then in the back of your mind, you're thinking Mustang. Oh yeah, I should get a Mustang. So it's less about the immediate click-through. But there are quite a lot of brands that's what they're looking for. So it's different strategies. And back to the premium versus remnant, remnant's a great way to just throw your brand out there and just have people look at it, right? And get top of mind. All right, so enough of the, what was that? Peanut butter cookie lovers. Another great spot to advertise, and this is a local company called Site Scout. And I really like them. They've tapped into the exchanges, the real-time bidding exchanges, where you can buy a lot of the remnant, the really cheap 5 cent per 1,000 impressions. But they've added data, and they've added this really nice self-serve interface, which I'm a fan of self-serve interfaces. I'll show you why. But you can see here that, and this is just an example of a campaign in terms of how much you want to spend and so forth, but they have quite a lot of targeting. And that's great. And what these guys do is they'll take your campaign and they'll throw it into all of these exchanges that are out there today. And these are massive. And they will try and do the best bid for you. So they will bid up to a certain amount and to get your ad out. And the only issue with this is that it's not premium. You don't know where your ad's going. It could be going anywhere. But it's a great way to get your message out. And if you can do targeting, like these guys can, OS and browser targeting, for instance. If you're going to target Android, you can do that. This would be a really expensive way to get your message out. Site Scout. They were doing about 20 million a year about 6 months ago. I expect that they're probably doing double than that. Very rare is you can actually go to a website, in this case CBS Interactive, and try and buy directly on that site. Now, I actually like this interface because this is our interface. When you don't see it shiny as logo, it's actually cute, it's cut off. But this is our technology on CBS's property. And you don't see a lot of this because not a lot of publishers have moved to this. We're trying to change that. But you can actually buy directly on CNET. And price is right here, and instead of having $25,000, you can actually go there and do it yourself, just like you could with Google, or Facebook, or LinkedIn. So this is the technology that we're trying to change. So if you have a game and you want to target game lovers, you can go to GameSpot.com. Everybody on GameSpot likes games, and you can do some targeting, and you can buy directly on the top, just like Electronic Arts and all those big guys. You won't get as many page impressions or ad impressions because it is at the same price. But at least you'll get your 15 minutes of fame up there. And the last slide, and this is something that I think everyone should do, is retargeting. So when someone comes to your site, maybe they've found you through Google or whatever, it doesn't matter. They come to your site, they're looking at what you have to say, then they go away. They all go away, right? And even if you have an e-commerce, and what Axel was saying, 2% actually go through. And 2% is actually very accurate. We find 2% on our e-commerce platform as well, through the entire system. So 98% of them are going away. Maybe they got there in error, but they're going away. So retargeting allows you to track them, kind of, throughout the internet. So they could, I think we have it. So they visit your site. There's actually a little cookie that gets saved on their browser. They leave. They go to CNN.com, and in the ad spot, they see an ad for your site. And they're like, at first, when this started to come out 2 years ago, everyone was freaked out. It's like, how are they following me? I was freaked out because you go to a competitor's site, and all of a sudden you're surfing the web, and their ad is following you, and it's like, oh my God, they're like, how do they know it's there? So it's kind of freaky at first, but now, by far, it's one of the most effective tools, and it's by far the cheapest way to advertise. Because you've done all the hard work. You've gotten a user to your site. That's the hard work. Though the easy one is to actually just put a cookie on them and get it retargeting. And it's very, very simple. There's a ton of companies out there. AdRoll, for instance, is a really popular one. But basically, when they click on your ad, they go back to your site. So you get them back. It's that it's the loop that really, really works. We've added this to e-commerce as well, so that if someone's on our site buying and they abandon the cart, we'll track them and we'll remind them, hey, why don't you continue to buy? Right? So it's really effective, very, very inexpensive. Like probably the most inexpensive way of advertising online. But you have to do the hard work. You have to get the user to your site first. Yeah, a loss because you won't click on it, right? How long do they have to show you the ad without you clicking on it before you get the hint? They're not interested in you, right? So they do have these algorithms, and it's much, much better. When it first came out, it was really freaky. It was like, oh my God, I have to call the police. They're following me, right? It wasn't like that. It was very freaky.
Yeah.
But now that they have enough frequency capping and enough algorithms in there to determine when you're just not interested. Yeah.
So, working on this model, is there a way for me, instead of stalking the customer, getting information as to where he went, what did he do after he left my site?
No, that you can't do unless you're Google. But so yeah, you don't actually follow him, and so when retargeting came out, everyone was talking about users being tracked. They're not really kind of tracked, like you aren't tracking them. There is a service, Google, for instance, which has a retargeting service, is kind of tracking them. AdRoll and all of these other companies are kind of tracking them, and they actually can't piece together your history. And if that makes you scared, I mean, Google knows your history better than you do, right? Yeah, you yourself as the website owner don't then get a history of where they've been to since they've left you, and then come back to you. That would be really freaky. And I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. Is there any other questions? Yeah.
So as it stands today, who are your customers, and do you see like asset managers like Manual Life Asset Management or Brookfield is approaching you?
No, so our customers are what I would call the top 1,000 websites in the world. And in fact, we get a lot of smaller websites. We get a lot of websites that are just starting up, and we just turn them down. There's a minimum number of users per month that we look at. And we also work only with brand safe sites. So, premium is much more expensive for a reason, right? And that's because you're advertising on the New York Times. You know the New York Times is a credible source. What you see on the New York Times is going to resonate with you. When you go to the National Enquirer, I guess, I don't even know if they're still around. But if you, what?
Charles Sun.
The Toronto Sun. If you go there, you know, it's in a different league. So those are who our customers are.
Global Mail has an appointment section. I don't know how much if somebody is promoted as CFO or appointed, they have an appointment section, global appointment.
Yeah.
So let us say the customer wants to die, but it is high, maybe I don't know the cost, it costs a lot of money to put Global Mail. Do you have any solution which will be as appealing, but it doesn't cost that much at this moment?
You know, the problem is that Globe and Mail doesn't want to take your money because it's not enough money, because it costs them, let's say, $5,000 to take your money. So it has to be more than $5,000 for them to make a profit. So that's the issue. If you're looking at a classified section on the Globe and Mail, then they probably have some kind of self-serve mechanism, but I don't know. And in all truth, Globe and Mail, although I use them as examples, they're not our customer. And in fact, we actually don't have Canadian customers. We only have American customers.
So, in things like AdWords or other advertising that you do, is there a way to find out what the other guy paid for that ad to show up for that ranking?
That's a really good question, and I don't know the answer to. You were saying yes? No, you were just like, yeah, I wanted an answer too. I don't know. I think there are quite a lot of services for AdWords. But like I said in my presentation, I think that there's a lot of other places that are probably even better than AdWords.
I didn't quite understand the business, but my question is, we pay $50,000 for LinkedIn a year for you. Can you make it cheaper for us? Your service?
No, we
So
don't
that's
work
not
with
your
LinkedIn.
model?
No.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Last question. Do you guys deal with fashion and decor kind of sources in terms of advertising sources?
I believe we have some fashion properties. We have internet brands. Modelmayhem.com is one of the properties that runs our technology. So there's a couple of them. And so if you were into that, if you were looking for an audience that would be on that site, you'd be able to buy an ad as little as $200 through our technology on their site.
Interior decor?
I'd have to look. I think we have some green interior deco sites or something like that. I don't fully remember everything.
We'll take one last question up there. Third
In
question.
the .com boom, any Tom, Dick and Harry can raise money 10 years ago.
Make it
Now,
shorter.
you have raised money before and you have a proven credential. So like, how do you feel for yourself to raise money at this moment as well as for somebody who is just starting?
So the question is, during the .com boom, it's easy to raise money. Now,
Now it is what is the status?
yeah. So I raised money in 2009. There was no money to be raised then. I was quite lucky, I would have to say, thanks to TideQuest. Before that, I raised money in 2005. I raised $4 million. I had 3 term sheets, 2005. It was awesome. None of those VCs are around anymore. And there was this perfect storm that all the VCs in town just died off. And most of them haven't come back. Actually, none of them have come back. There's been new ones. Now, we have a different problem now. It's awesome to get startup funding. Everyone here can get startup funding. There's so much angel-backed money here that if you can't get an angel to invest in your company, then you're doing something wrong, and you need to look at your product and company and how you're communicating. Seriously, everyone can get angel-backed funding. The problem is, what do you do after that? Will that money get you to cash flow positive? Probably not. In 90% of the businesses, it won't. So then what happens? You have to go back and get some more money, or you have to get an A round, which is a much larger VC-led round. That's now where the mallet comes out and whacks you on the head, because there's not enough of that. And it's called the A crunch right now, and there's a lot of that going on where there's billion startups, and I see that in Toronto. Toronto is hotter of a market than I think almost anywhere else other than Silicon Valley. We can't hire people in Toronto. We can't hire engineers, because every engineer here thinks that they're going to be the next Google and they're all doing a startup like you guys, right? So we have to go and hire out of Newfoundland, in Spain, and in Brazil, seriously. We have to actually sign papers to bring people over into the country because we can't hire in Toronto. It's worse than in the dot-com era because everyone can get a little bit of money and go and build a little startup. The problem comes later. And there's not enough money, and really the A round, to be honest, has to come in from a US source.
So seed stage is okay, but after that when you go to second stage, it is problematic.
It's a huge problem. There's just not enough VCs, not enough money here in Canada. There is some great VCs, OMERS, the people at OMERS, the people at Inovia Capital out of Montreal, some really great VCs. The VCs that are left are the best, right? But there's just not enough. There's way too many deals. Canadians, as a group, are way too smart for the amount of money that's here.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.